Welcome to Disney Planning Insights. This is a replay of our DPI News and Notes show that we do every Tuesday over on Facebook. To see my smiling face, find us on Facebook at DPI Podcast or on YouTube at the Disney Planning Insights Podcast. Now enjoy this episode after a short ad from our friends at Anchor. Hi, I'm Matt. Welcome to Disney Planning Insights. Through creative content and live shows, we explain the hidden details of the Disney experience so that our clients can execute memorable adventures. Together with Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel, we have helped hundreds of clients plan, book, and prepare for magical Disney vacations. Let our experience help you avoid common planning mistakes and maximize the enjoyment on your next Disney trip. All right, like I said earlier, it's the Disney Planning Insights podcast. I'm Matt. We've got Peter on the other side here, and we are going to talk some Disney news tonight, and we are going to do a top 3 and all kinds of fun tonight. So, before we get going, I want to jump through quite a few new subscribers. So, Christy Yang, thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. I'm going to butcher this name. Adina Baskew, thank you for joining the YouTube channel. Here we go. Come on, go faster, go faster, go faster. Brittany Brittany Ross, thank you for joining the YouTube channel. This isn't going to show the whole thing across the bottom, so the Garbalosa Family Adventures, thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. MJ Lowry 410, thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. And Georgina Bertolotti, thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. It is embarrassing, isn't it? So we got, like I said, a lot going on. Huge news from last week. So let's go ahead. Let's get Peter from Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel on over here, and let's go ahead and get into some news tonight. And everything's going to bounce again. So, Mr. Salvadori, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. What's up?
Not a whole lot. So we got hit with some news right after we went off the air last week about the Starcruiser. So let's go ahead and let's get into all of that type of news. So let me get into the timer here and let's go. We've got 15 minutes. We're going to start off with the big one because this might be one of the biggest fails that has ever happened in Disney. And it is the Galactic Starcruiser, and it is closing on September the 30th. So why don't you go ahead and go through what Disney is doing right now to kind of get everybody in the right, I guess, timeline for this on the travel side.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as soon as the news broke, I texted you last week, and then you and I just basically kind of had the same idea. I mean, the writing was on the wall. You and I were talking about it. They had limited the cruises by half. At the end of the day, they just created an unsustainable product where the cost far outweighed the value of the experience. You and I talked at length many times in the show. Why would I spend for a 2-night excursion with a few hours in the park and some unique experiences? Why would I spend the same amount of money for two people, not even a family of 4, mind you, that I could go and get a Caribbean cruise a 6-night Caribbean cruise for 2 people would be pretty similar, especially if I snatch up a deal. So, I mean, as I said, the writing was on the wall. They were already limiting cruises, but basically right now is if you have a Starcruiser reservation after September 30th, right now, if you want to rebook onto one between now and September 30th, you give them a call, and they are actively reaching out as well. But basically, in 3 days, whatever is not rebooked is going to reopen for public consumption. And then anything after September 30th is just going to be auto-canceled. But obviously, Disney would prefer to keep your money. So if a Starcruiser isn't working, they're working on booking you into a Disneyland or a Disney World or a Disney Cruise Line experience where they kind of make it worth your while, similar to what happened to the Heidels with their cruise, where they're kind of giving you money spent plus a bit more perk. But that's kind of on a case-by-case basis, depending on what alternate product you select. So if you're thinking, like, if you heard the news and were like, oh my God, I better go on this because it's closing, it's done, it's gone, you cannot book right now. Bookings are closed to the general public until the 26th, which is Friday.
Yeah, and on top of that, people that have rebooked have already sold out the final cruise. So that cruise from the 28th to the 30th is completely booked now. So you can't take that one. So yeah, so you know, from a financial standpoint, I heard the number of a $300 million depreciation over the next 2 quarters, which is an insane number to think about when you're talking about just hemorrhaging money, you know. And when we talk about hemorrhaging money with Disney, normally it's in like the TV side and the movie side, not necessarily the parks division. This is really the first like huge miss for Disney. I mean, this is on the ilk of like Alien Encounters misses for Disney. Let's put an R-rated ride in the middle of Walt Disney World. That sounds
in the middle of Magic Kingdom, nonetheless.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is just one of those things.
Like
now,
that would fit in Hollywood Studios. You could put that in Hollywood Studios and possibly get away with it.
So what happens with this property? You know, we speculate a lot on this show. What do you think happens with this property?
I think it becomes a hotel. I think it just becomes a Star Wars themed hotel because you've already got everything to make that happen. You know, I think it just becomes a deluxe hotel where maybe you rip out things like the childcare services and maybe create some more rooms or some room, you know, or some other type of facilities. Like you take out one of the lounges for the kids and you turn it into, you know, the activities area that a deluxe resort would have. Maybe you don't have the multiple dining situations, but maybe you do. Maybe you leave they already basically have a quick service, 2 sit downs, and then if you take the child care areas, you can easily turn those into either other experiences. You could put a spa in there. You could turn it into, you know, the arts and crafts, the activity area. Really, I mean, there's enough space in there that's now going to be not utilized that you could put like an indoor pool. But I think you give it a few years or maybe a year or however long, and I just think it turns into a deluxe hotel that's space themed. So you lose the immersive storytelling experience, but you keep many of the other things. Now, I would guess they'll get rid of like the lightsaber encounter and all the other little, you know, data pad interactions and stuff like that. But ultimately what it boils down to is people who went during its 18 months of being open got a rare, unique, possibly once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
Or maybe they dial it down and price it normal.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where I was going is I think you have the opportunity here to have an experience, that dining experience, that cruise experience where people could actually come from Hollywood Studios the way that you went from the Galactic Starcruiser to Hollywood Studios. People could come from Hollywood Studios and experience that dining and that entertainment, because they did have something really cool there, but it just wasn't cool enough to pull 100 rooms every 3 days for a sustained amount of time.
Not for the cost. Not for the cost. I mean,
yeah.
Honestly, if it was, like I said, if it was 2/3 the cost, they wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if it was $4,500 for a couple, I think.
Yeah, because now, if you give me that, now I'm at the cost of a rack rate stay at a deluxe resort with some park tickets. So instead of that, I'm paying for this immersive, unique experience. I also think Disney went a little bit too reliant on a fan base, right?
Yeah.
Now, yes, is Star Wars arguably one of the greatest science fiction fan bases and, products that's ever come across humanity? Yeah. I mean, and if you, oh no, Babylon thought, okay, relax. Right. Star Wars and the intellectual property of Star Wars is just 50 years in the making at this point. It's, yes, so everybody's got familiarity, but how many people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to go to this immersive hotel that makes me feel like I'm in Star Wars? Like, that's probably a much smaller subset that's willing to turn on Force Awakens on Disney Plus,
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, when you're looking at, you limited it to one fan base, and you limited it to where, yeah, you could take different paths, but once you did it once, a lot of people said, yeah, that's enough for me. I'm not going to spend another $6,000 to do this just to experience it in a different direction. Your diehards aren't going to spend that much money once they get out of mom and dad's basement. I mean, Star Wars fans, I love you. I like Star Wars. It was just too easy. It was just sitting there.
What? Oh my God! Did you just see that, Matt? Our YouTube channel just lost 16 followers.
I know. I just pissed off everybody all at once. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. So there was a number thrown around in a conversation by Justin Morrow this week about park expansion, and the number was $17 billion over the next 10 years. Now, when you sit down and you think about that, that's a huge number. Break it down, $1.7 billion over the next 10 years. And then you look at what they've done over the last 10 years and you realize, yeah, it's only like 60% of what they've done in the last 10 years. So, what does the $17 billion equate to in the next 10 years? You've got Frozen in Paris, you've got Frozen in Hong Kong, you've got the Pandora expansion in Disneyland. What else is going into this money?
Well, I mean, there's already, we already know about Zootopia and Animal Kingdom being a pretty strong possibility. There's, in addition to Pandora over in Land, I mean, there have been rumors about them getting some Zootopia as well, maybe getting a Tangled area, maybe getting a Frozen area. The fifth gate that, again, like the Reedy Creek documents kind of hinted at. And so it's, I mean, that absorbs, if you put a fifth gate in, that absorbs half that money right there.
Yeah.
I mean, if not more than half that money right there. And then, if a fifth gate gets put in, again, I don't think you can make it all Marvel. You're going to have to make some type of a middle, midway type entrance area, similar to like a Studios or an Epcot or a whatever, and then make lands. And then you've got tons of different options of things that, I mean, you could do a full Frozen area, a whole Tangled area, a Peter Pan area. You can get Tron over in Disneyland over in California. But lots and lots of stuff for sure.
Yeah, and I think we'll get a good taste of what's to come in September. I think there's going to be some relatively big announcements with Disney 100 D23 this September. So,
It's got to be.
Yeah, you got to stay tuned to the channel because we are going to have everything that is there as soon as it happens.
And especially like you were just talking about, I mean, the losses that are being taken, they've got to prove. And I mean, right now, Disney World has posted its worst attendance 6-week stretch since they reopened from the pandemic. So, people were itching to travel. They had that stimulus money. They spent it. Now inflation has affected the cost of everything. And so Disney World has bumped its price. Like, I priced out for a client earlier today to go 4 days with single park tickets for her family with 2 kids under 10. It was going to be $2,300 for tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $140. Like, as you roll forward, it's $140 a day. I mean, that's up from $110 not 2 years ago.
Yeah, it is getting to the point where the tickets are the issue because you can still get into an all-star sub 200 a night.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting closer and closer. Like, my family is, last time when we went was the first time that we went for a week, and only I couldn't get annual passes despite how much I tried. And so I went, okay, well, I'm just going to buy 3-day tickets. So we were there for 8 days and only went to the park for 3 of them. I mean, you're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah, and that's just crazy to think about that. It is, I feel like, getting priced out of a lot of people's range right now. And that's sad. Let's talk about a few other things in Florida. Let's start there. The Lake Nona project, which was this huge building campus that was going to bring over 2,000 employees from California to Florida, has been completely scrapped. A lot of people went out and said, hey, this is all because of the DeSantis and Disney thing. And this was well in the works prior to that. They've got interviews from early December saying that, when Iger stepped in, that this was a project that was kind of off the table at that point. So some of those employees have already made the move, so Disney is working to get them back to California or figure out what they want to do. But that project is completely scrapped. Talking about California, Fantasmic at Disneyland is now shut down through at least Labor Day. So we did have the fire with the Fantasmic Dragon there. And it's going to be shut down for a little bit longer. What's good to see, though, is that the dragons in both Festival of Fantasy and Stars on Parade in Disneyland Paris are both working with the fire effect again. So that was the same type of fire effect, and they are back to working. And then last but not least, I had something and it just went out of my head, but I think I've got it right here. Disney Plus, and I want to spend, our timer just went off, but I want to spend a couple of seconds on this real quick. So Disney Plus is merging all of the Hulu content into Disney Plus now. So if you have a Disney Plus Hulu account, all of that content is getting merged together. What that also means, though, is Disney is purging a bunch of the stuff that's on Disney Plus right now, including Harmonious Live, which is kind of surprising. So if you do want to see Harmonious Live, what could be one of the best live Disney productions ever, it is going to be taken down off of Disney Plus here this week. So definitely jump over there and check that out. And then last but not least, I guess, I'm going to go PSSS or PS, what is it in Cars 2? PPSS.
Oh, yeah. PP, that's funny right there.
I didn't mean to rent that movie. I didn't know what it was. No, Indy 500 this weekend. Not only do we get Kylo Ren waving the green flag, we get Mirabelle as the Grand Marshal. So pretty cool Disney ties into the Indy 500 this weekend in Indianapolis, Indiana. So, hey, anything else that you have seen that we should talk about?
No, just if you're planning a trip between now and September, those ticket deals are crazy good, and not just for Florida residents. The regular one, I just kind of lamented the cost of tickets. You can get a 4-day ticket for $400 a person, which is, for a family of four, $700 than what I just talked about. $700 less than what I just talked about.
And I think, we've talked about this for a year now. I think this fall, we were talking about, once we got through spring break this year, that we thought the crowds were just going to be kind of away. And when you look at, this weekend is usually a huge, kickoff to summer with Memorial Day weekend, and it's hard to get park reservations. There are park reservations for every park, every day through the weekend.
Well, that's I'm going down here in 3 weeks, and I went on for dining, and I'm there over a weekend. I'm there Thursday to Sunday, supposed to be the worst days to be there, and I can still grab multiple times at over at the Sci-Fi Drive-In. Just reservations that shouldn't be available.
Yeah.
Under 30 days out.
Yeah. Well, everybody, that is the news. Let's get into this week's top 3. Business trip.
Did the people move it wrong?
It does tingle a little bit. All right, it is top 3 time for May the 23rd of 2023. If you've been with us before, thanks for coming back. If you haven't been with us before, welcome. This is our kind of rankings part of the show where we are going to draw a random category out of this bag of chips. And Peter and I are going to have 20 seconds to figure out what are our top 3 or bottom 3 of each one. Which, when we go down to September, we need to brainstorm 50 of these. So we have them, because we're starting to run out of topics. So we are going to do chip number 1, or dash, but I think it's 1. So let's go over to the spreadsheet.
Your favorite Incredible.
Your favorite Incredible.
Yeah, it says dash.
Favorite uses of minivans.
What? Get out of here.
Yeah.
That's a dumb one.
It is.
How is that number 1?
You got 40 seconds.
Planning your first trip and getting overwhelmed by all the details? Planning your next trip and just want some new suggestions on things you haven't tried? Contact me at Princess and the Mouse Travel, and I'd love to work with you planning your next trip to the most magical place on earth.
You can contact Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel on Facebook at PATM Disney Travel. Peter is not happy about this week's top 3.
There's only 3 uses. We can get more. Yeah, we can get more specific. It's fine. I got 4 things listed, so it's fine.
All right, you go ahead and you go with your number 3.
So something that I have used a minivan for, and really, can I just pause for a second? We're saying the minivans because a minivan is a service provided through Lyft, where they pick you up in, they call them minivans, but they're normally Suburbans or Tahoes, and they're just wrapped in red with white dots. And the difference here is it's a Lyft that costs a premium. I'd say about a 30 to 40% premium over what the normal Lyft would cost. But the advantage is they are driven by Disney cast members who know a ton of trivia and information, have knowledge and inside workings of the parks. So just for those of you that don't understand what the minivan service is, you can book it through Lyft, similar to a rideshare. And so I'm going to kind of talk about some of my things are going to be rideshare in general, but yes, the minivan specifically is kind of like a step above and beyond.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with the Lyft app, these come in like a Lyft Black, that kind of price range. And what's nice about them with the kid side of it is they all come equipped with booster and car seats in each one. So it does make them very, very kid friendly. You don't even have to ask; they all come with them. So if you do get a minivan, you get the booster and car seats with that as well. So Peter, why don't you go ahead and start with your number 3, bud?
So my third favorite thing, and I am going to try and put these in order, but we'll see if Matt steals them. So my third favorite thing to do with the minivan or rideshare service is use it when I'm heading to the parks early in the morning, especially when you're staying at one of those value resorts or you don't get a good location, even at something like a Caribbean Beach or a Port Orleans Riverside. We were at Port Orleans Riverside, and our bus depot was the third one of Alligator Bayou. And so we watched on our Magic Kingdom morning, we watched 3 full buses go past before we got a bus that we may or may not have asserted ourselves in front of people who had been there before us to make sure that we got on, because we did not have stroller encumbrances and such. And even then, we were the last 4 people behind the yellow line. My daughter had to ride on the floor. So these rideshare minivans or other rideshare services are fantastic for early morning if you're in a not opportune bus depot location at the value or at the intermediate resorts, or if you're at those value resorts. Because, I mean, if you're over in the 90s area of Pop Century and you're going to Magic Kingdom, I mean, that's almost a 10, depends on the pace you go, but it's like a 10-minute walk to the bus depot. Then if you're going to Magic Kingdom and you're there anywhere under an hour before the park opens, guarantee there's a 4-bus line that you're going to stand in for. Now, they're going to start sending the accordions and everything else, but you're still going to be standing there for at least 20 minutes waiting for it. You could come out of your room, have your minivan pick you up at the 90s building. They'll drive right up to the nearest spot of your building, hop in. And what's great about the minivan service over the Uber or other Lyft services is if you're going to Magic Kingdom, the minivan will drop you off where the bus depot is, whereas the other rideshare bookings are going to drop you off at the ticket transportation center, which can be kind of a pain in the butt. So there is an advantage to paying the premium, especially for Magic Kingdom. That was a very long and drawn out way of saying, get to the parks early in the morning and avoid the big bus lines by getting a minivan.
All right. Yeah, and I was going to bring up that difference between the drop-off at the TTC versus the drop-off at the gate. And that is very much the same at all of the parks. Minivans have one drop-off point that is much closer to the park entrance than all the other rideshare services.
Hollywood Studios straight up drops you at security.
Yeah, it
Hollywood
does.
Studios minivan drop-off is the turn right by the left side of security. You're closer than the buses.
Yeah. So my number 3 is going to be kind of that same ilk, but it's going to be getting to and from Disney Springs from the parks. Because right now you cannot take a bus from any of the parks to Disney Springs, and you've never been able to take a bus from Disney Springs to the parks. They just didn't want people parking at Disney Springs and then going to the parks from there. But you can take a minivan to those areas and back and forth between those areas. So it's a great way to where if you want to just leave the park midday, go catch a lunch at Disney Springs and then come back, easy way to get to Disney Springs and back to your park without having to go through another resort hotel between the two of them. So my number 3 is to get between the parks and Disney Springs. So Peter, let's go ahead and get into our number 2. And no, we're not going to get into our number 2 because my Stream Deck decided it wanted to be a volume mixer again and not a Stream Deck. So I've got to let it go to its timeout. So I have to go a minute. So, and then it will time out and then it will go again. I don't know why it doesn't. It frustrates me. There we go.
Still live?
There we go. Yeah, we're live, but business trip. Wow. No, not quite. So before you get going, let's tell people where they can find you. I'm doing it one early.
So, oh yeah. Normally it comes before number 1. Sometimes you mix it in before number 2. Yeah. So find me over on Facebook. Just type in Princess and the Mouse Travel, and you'll find me right there. You can also go to our website. Our Wix site is scrolling through the podcast, and heading there allows you to fill out a vacation form. Gives me some of the kind of initial questions. Oh, it's apparently up right now. I can't see the stream, but Matt's clearly saying it's up right now. So if you head over there, it'll basically pre-ask you all the questions that I'm going to ask you in the first few messages back and forth if you do Facebook message me. So I'll get back with you as quick as I am able. So my number 2, I am going to go with this one because you used it either last week or a couple weeks ago. But this one's pretty much a no-brainer. Using the minivan or other service to get over to the golf courses if you're going to golf while you're at Disney makes a ton of sense. I mean, first of all, if you bring your clubs, how are you going to get them to the golf course? Unless you're at Polynesian and golfing at Magnolia or Palm. Yeah, or at Saratoga and golfing over at the Lake Buena Vista. Like,
hey! I've brought my golf clubs on the monorail before.
Right, that's what I was going to say. It's like, so your other option is I'm going to ride with my golf clubs on a mode of transportation or multiple modes of transportation to get within striking distance of those golf courses.
I got no weird looks at all on the monorail going to the golf course.
I'll bet you, yeah. I'm sure it's commonplace. Yep, that makes sense. It's over by Polynesian. If you know, you know. So obviously taking a ride share like a minivan is a great idea. Getting yourself to the golf course, it's going to allow you, again, kind of that ease, that convenience of walk out of my room, get in the minivan, head over to the golf course, get dropped off. You also kind of like almost get dropped off in style because you rolled up in the minivan to golf at the Disney course. So we'll keep that one short and simple, very easy. If you bring your golf clubs, take a Lyft or Uber. Obviously, if you're renting, take it or leave it. Your call.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great one. And again, they are all larger vehicles. They're either Traverses or Tahoes or Suburbans. And just great vehicles to get around to do the golfing and that kind of stuff. So no, fantastic idea. My number 2, I love using them going resort to resort. We do so much dining in other resorts that it makes a ton of sense for us to do that. Now one thing that's really cool about the minivans is they all have a USB. And that little USB stick has the soundtrack for every resort hotel that the bus would. So if you get on a bus that's going to Pop Century has its own soundtrack that you listen to from wherever you're going to Pop Century or from Pop Century to wherever you're going. The minivans have the same thing. So when they pull up, they'll switch it over to that soundtrack and you'll listen to that music going to that resort hotel. So it's cool going to, like Topolino's at Riviera or going over to the boardwalk, getting those different resort soundtracks that you wouldn't normally get. We don't stay at a lot of deluxe resorts, so we get to hear some of that music that they would hear on the buses as well. Another thing that Peter brought up was the knowledge factor of the minivan drivers. Even if you don't know where you're going when you get to that resort, you can ask your minivan driver and they probably know once you get into the lobby, or even if you don't go into the lobby, where are you going to get to this meal or get to wherever you're going at that resort. So no, it's a great way to use the minivans, just getting from your resort to another resort for dining and that kind of stuff. So that is my number 2. So Peter, let's go ahead and get to your number 1 and Before we get to your number one, if you guys have any ideas for the top 3 show, like I said, we are starting to run a little dry. I'm sure we can sit down and come up with about 30 and 15 minutes tonight. But send us your ideas. You can either do it in the Facebook chat, you can do it in the YouTube chat, you can do it in the comments in YouTube, or you can go over to the website, and that is patmdisneytravel.wixsite.com/planning, and go into the upper right-hand corner, and you can send us your idea for a top 3 segment today. So go ahead and do that. So Peter, what is your number one use of the minivan service?
We should do a top 3 show where we come up with top 3 show ideas.
We'd get 6 of them.
Right. Done. Got 6 more weeks of footage.
Gets us through the summer.
All right. So my number one is similar to Matt's number 2, but I'm going to be more specific with it. Matt talked about some of the great things to do at the resorts, and some of the great things you can do at some of the resorts are visit the nightlife scenes, whether it be clubs like the Dueling Piano Bar at the boardwalk, or the Abracadabra along the boardwalk, or even within a resort. For example, like Trader Sam's, Grog Grotto over at Polynesian. And there are many other just really, really wonderful late night establishments. Well, if you find yourself wanting to stay there till midnight or 1 a.m. when they close, because you're on an adult-only trip or your kids are older, so you trust them back at the resort by yourself while you and whoever you're there with want to go out for some drinks, you're going to have a hard time if you stay at Trader Sam's until they close and your stay...
Of course you're freezing now. Well, Peter's trying to say...
Am I still good?
You're good now. You're good now. You were frozen for a little while.
Oh.
You froze, when you were talking about if you wanted to stay till close at Trader Sam's. It's really hard to get a bus anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're being completely honest, like if you were to walk up to the Polynesian guest services and say, I stay here, how do I get there? Like, chances are they'd probably make it happen. Because like we've had situations where we've had dining reservations and they were supposed to be, now they won't if you're outside of normal transportation hours, because that's on you. We've had situations where they like straight up call us a private bus, but that's because a transportation we should have been able to take wasn't working, and this was on Disney, not on me. So if you want to do that, then these minivans are a great idea. Again, especially just due to, now I have now ridden in dozens of Orlando area Uber and Lyft vehicles, and I've never ever felt this way. So I am not knocking it in any way, shape, or form. But especially if you're traveling with maybe a younger group of girls late at night, knowing that you're going to step in and out of a minivan would be worth the extra money over just booking a regular Uber or Lyft. Again, I have never had anything but positive, amazing experiences with the people that drive the ride shares, but I'm also a relatively decent sized male, so I don't necessarily have that same concern. So having the minivan and all that professionalism that Matt and I have been talking about is definitely a good idea for those late night bar scenes if you want to go and enjoy your time but still need to get back to wherever you're staying.
Yeah, now this wasn't a minivan experience. It wasn't even an Uber or Lyft experience. But if there's some guy just hanging out in front of the resort with a broken down, just like beater van and says, hey, I could take your group somewhere, give me $20, it's probably not the best idea, and you probably want to have a safe word before you get into it. So.
Well, and you're going to be likely, your faculties might be diminished, so you might make bad decisions. That actually happened to us once. We were leaving Hollywood Studios and needed to get back to the airport, and we kept trying to order an Uber, but we were like, Hollywood Studios was running surge prices, and so we kept just refreshing until we could book without a surge. and then we'd book without a surge, and then it would get canceled. So then we would sit there, and it just kept happening and happening. And there was an Uber driver whose ride didn't show up, and he was like, hey, I can go to the airport. I know I'm going to get somebody and just come right back here. So I'll take you to the airport for $40. You know, we won't put it in through the app. I'm going to make more money. You're going to get there for slightly less money. Like, it's a win-win for both of us. And boy, we sat on that app for like 15 more minutes before we finally agreed to it. But you better believe I had Google Maps up the whole time. I'm like, okay, he is on the correct route. Like, I ain't losing my kidney and liver today, buddy.
we had it coming back from Discovery Cove, and he actually, the vehicle was in such bad shape that he goes, I don't think my truck's or my van's gonna make it to your resort, and dropped us off in a strip mall off of International Drive. And we had to get an Uber from there. So, yes, make wise decisions while you're down there. Make wise decisions. Okay, my number one. It is not back right now, but my number one is using minivan service to get to and from Disney Cruise Lines. It is a fantastic way to get from the land portion of your land and sea or back to the land portion of your land and sea when you're doing a cruise. They do have a set rate to do it, but using those bigger vehicles, again, you get dropped off right at the cruise terminal. You don't have to go into any of the rideshare areas. And again, you get that service, that Disney service to and from the cruise lines. From the resorts, it's about an hour and 10 minutes to the cruise port there in Port Canaveral. And they don't do it to the cruise port in Miami, of course. That would make a lot of sense because it's like 3.5 hours or something.
Yeah.
But they are. Do you think they're going to do it out of Fort Lauderdale when they start going off that side? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, that'd be close. Like, that's under 2 hours.
Yeah, I think that might be something that they do. I mean, I bet you it'd be around $100 or maybe a little bit north of $100. But I mean, that's an interesting thought there, that they might go both ways once they bring that back. And the same way with the airport. They aren't doing the airport right now, but they used to be able to get a minivan to and from the airport as well. I would imagine that that's coming back at some point as well. They've got to make money somehow, and as long as the minivans are making money, they're going to utilize them as much as they can. So yeah. So my number one is utilizing the minivan for land and sea vacations. Peter, another great top three. For those of you that are waiting to listen to these on Spotify is still kind of jacking us around a little bit when it comes to the ad revenue. So once we get that figured out, we'll start reposting these up on Spotify. But until then, definitely go over to YouTube. You can RSS feed it from there, and you can listen to it on the website as well. So thank you guys all very much for watching tonight. Another top 3 episode with Peter with Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel. You guys all have a good night, and we will talk to you later. Bye now. Hey, we have Peter with Princesses and the Mouse Disney Travel joining us tonight. We talked about the Galactic Starcruiser failure and had a top 3 about Disney's minivans. want to thank everybody for watching, listening, liking, sharing, everything that you do for the channel. You guys all have a good week. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and we will talk to you next Tuesday.